Portion of today's video is sponsored by Mofft. More on them later. Apple has just released a whole bunch of new iPads, and you might not know which one you should get for your hard-earned money. You work hard, you don't want to waste it. I'm here to help you today. So we're going to look at all of the new iPads and which one is best for your budget. All right, so all these iPads, they are awesome, all different sizes. Let's take a look. All right, first we need to look at screen size option. All of the iPads are going to either come in an 11-inch version or 13-inch version. That is if you're not going with the iPad mini. And if you're going with the iPad mini, that is an 8.3-inch screen. It's the smallest of all the iPad screens. And so you really do have to figure out, do you want more screen real estate? Like if this is gonna be your only device, you probably wanna go with something like the 13-inch model. Also, if you're an artist, you probably wanna go with the 13-inch model because it's the size of a regular piece of paper. That's something to consider on this. If you're somebody who's gonna take a ton of handwritten notes, get yourself the 13. I think that's gonna be the most, it's gonna just feel the most natural. But if you're somebody who's gonna use this more handheld, you're gonna use it while you're reading on the couch and all that, going with something like the iPad mini, because of its 8.3-inch screen, makes it the size of a single page of a book, and it's super easy to hold. And then as always, when you're looking at these things, man, the Goldilocks is the 11-inch. If you're gonna look at the 11-inch, you can go with something like the iPad Pro, the iPad Air, or the new iPad, the A16. And as far as screen size go, they're gonna be really similar experiences. Granted, the actual display, what's behind the kind of size of the screen, is gonna completely differ depending on which iPad you actually get. So on these three, the Air, the A16, and the Mini, you are only getting a 60 hertz display. So that means that when you're swiping, it's not gonna look as smooth as something like the Pro. The Pro is 120 hertz. So when you're looking on a Pro display, when you're swiping, it's just super, super smooth. All the animations are really smooth. That's a big deal to some people, but it doesn't need to be a big deal for everybody. For me, I pretty much only read books and maybe watch YouTube videos, which are typically in 30 frames per second anyways. I don't notice a big difference, but if you're somebody who is a gamer and artist, when you're kind of dragging the pencil around, it is nice to have that extra hertz rate because everything just looks smoother. But the big thing with these, 60 hertz screens, don't get bullied into thinking you need the 120 hertz. You absolutely do not. It is a nice to have, but man, the price difference between something like the A16 and the iPad Pro is a massive, massive difference, and I don't think you get that much of a difference in the quality of the experience you're having with the iPad. Now, one major difference with the Pro model of the iPad, it's a tandem OLED, which means the blacks are inky blacks, really dark blacks, which I actually like because I read a lot at night, and so having it where the whole screen is not lit up in your face is really big. And so yes, the quality of the iPad Pro is phenomenal. There is no beating tandem OLED on the iPad Pro. However, if you're somebody who doesn't really care all that much, you don't really care about the visual fidelity, all that kind of stuff, don't waste your money on an iPad Pro. Hey, quick thank you to today's sponsor, Mofft. This is their brand new dynamic folio case. It's an ultralight floating creativity station. Mofft is such a brilliant company. For real, I have never seen a company make more creative cases and more creative products than Mofft, and so I'm just super impressed with this dynamic folio case. Now what's cool is the name Mofft actually stands for Mobile Office for Travelers. So they're trying to create a mobile office wherever you go, and with this dynamic folio case, they totally achieve it. All right, so the first mode I wanna look at is theater mode. What you do is you swing it around like that, you touch these back two things to each other, and then you've got a perfect viewing angle. And so as you can see, this sits at a 60-degree slant like this, so it's actually really enjoyable to use while you're watching stuff. And it is 3 inches off of the desktop, and so if you're gonna use something like FaceTime, it actually gets the camera higher up to be more eye level. So when it's in theater mode, if you just tip it backwards, then you are in creation mode. Once you're in creation mode, it's really helpful because it's 2 inches off of the ground, and so if you're using your Apple Pencil or if you're putting a keyboard right up under it, it makes it so it's a more ergonomic design. Now, because the iPad is lifted up in the air by the dynamic folio case, it actually relieves neck pain 50% for both work and for entertainment. You can also place the phone on the folio to make it a seamless dual screen drawing experience. So for me, I'm always so impressed by Mofft's cases. They are sleek and you can travel with them really easily and get a lot of work done. If you want to get yours, go ahead and click the link in the description below. Thank you again, Mofft, for sponsoring today's video. Let's jump back into it. All right, next let's talk about what is inside these iPads because they really, really vary quite differently. Now, talking about the weakest iPad there is, the new A16 iPad is as weak as it gets. It's the A16 chip, which is still a pretty great chip. The A16 chip is a 5-core CPU and a 4-core GPU, which might not sound like a lot to you, but in just everyday usage of this iPad, it works perfectly fine. Yes, technically it's more than half the kind of computing power of the iPad Pro. However, I just don't do anything on an iPad that's gonna completely saturate this chip. I don't think most people will. There's a few people out there that have workloads, you know, that will totally saturate an iPad Pro, but really the reason people are going for the Pro is for the screen. And so, you know, if you're just a regular user, you're watching YouTube, you're watching Netflix, you're answering emails, the A16 is going to feel absolutely lightning fast. Now the next step up is going to be the iPad Mini. The iPad Mini has the A17 Pro chip in it, which is a 6-core CPU, 5-core GPU. It's just a little bit more powerful, that's all. Most people are gonna buy this because they wanna read books on it, they want something small to put in their bag to just have a small iPad experience, and you can use the Apple Pencil with this, so you can still take handwritten notes if you want. Next up is the M3 iPad Air, an incredible device. The M3 chip is actually very powerful. I have an M3 Max MacBook Pro and it just blows through stuff. You are not going to make this chip feel like it's sweating. So if you're curious, like, does the M3 iPad Air actually do the work you need it to do? The answer is going to be yes. Maybe, you know, for some people, if you're rendering out big video files, it still handles that totally fine. So the M3 is kind of like the do-all. You can, you know, it's just going to do fantastic with everything you need. That M3 chip is 8-core CPU, 9-core GPU, so it's kind of like stepping up just a little bit. And then you got the Grand Poobah himself, the iPad Pro, which has the M4 chip in it, 10-core GPU, 10-core CPU. This thing is just absolutely lightning fast. You could do anything you want on this chip, and it is going to do fine. It's gonna play video games great. It's gonna play, you know, if you're doing video editing and all that with your iPad, it's just gonna blow everything out of the water. There is no competition with it, but the price is just ridiculous. Like, you're not gonna be getting such an immensely better experience out of this thing, and so the value to experience ratio isn't always there. Next, let's talk about the cameras. They all have cameras, so if you're somebody like a retail person and you're gonna be using this in a store, I would personally just go with the A16. That's gonna be perfectly good for what you need to do. If you are somebody who's scanning documents and you need to sign documents with your Apple Pencil, all of them can do that. And really the only big difference is the M4 iPad Pro can actually do ProRes video, which you're probably not gonna do on your iPad anyways. So next, let's talk about Apple Pencil support. This is where things get a little frustrating with how Apple has done this. These three, so the Mini 7, the iPad Air M3, and the M4 iPad Pro, they can all use the brand new Apple Pencil Pro, which is a great experience if you're an artist. If you're not an artist, it's okay. Whereas the A16, it either needs the first generation Apple Pencil or the Apple Pencil USB-C. And that's really frustrating. I really wish Apple had just kind of made compatibility across the board, but they're always trying to make a little bit of extra money off you. And so when you upgrade your iPad, sometimes you need to upgrade your Apple Pencil as well. It's annoying. But the big thing is just make sure when you're buying your Apple Pencil, you look at the compatibility to make sure it works with the one you have. Now, the next big thing to talk about is the fact that they all have keyboards except for the iPad Mini, which makes sense. I mean, that would be a very small keyboard, but for the rest of these iPads, they do have keyboards that come with them. That's my favorite way to input device for these iPads. I love using it kind of as like a mini computer. I'll just take my iPad Pro out with my keyboard, and that's fine. I've got it somewhere in a pile. I'm not gonna get it out. You've seen it. And the final thing we need to talk about is price and who these devices are for. All right, so the biggest one is the iPad Pro. It is $1,000 for the 11-inch. You add the keyboard to that, Apple Pencils for that, you are automatically in MacBook Air territory. So I don't know that, you know, for anybody really, I recommend the iPad Pro. I have it because I'm a tech review channel. I have to have it, you know, to make videos about it, but that's so much money for what you're getting. Now, the good kind of middle ground is the M3 iPad Air. If you're getting the 11-inch version, that starts at $600, $599 technically, but let's just go with $600. And that's a really good price for an iPad that's going to have a great experience. You're gonna get so much out of this thing, and it's gonna feel, you know, 95% as good as the iPad Pro. And then you have the iPad Mini, which is $599. Again, that's a little bit high for what you're getting. If you're somebody who like really reads a lot, that's the one I'm gonna recommend for you. $599 though is quite a bit for a mini device. And then you have the A16. The A16 is an incredible value. For $350, you are getting so much experience out of an iPad. It's going to feel like almost like an iPad Air. It's gonna feel absolutely amazing, and you are saving so much money. So finally, let's talk who are these iPads actually for. The iPad Pro is for almost nobody. It is for professionals only. If you're a professional artist, pick this up. You're gonna do fantastic with it. If you're just a really rich person and you got that money laying around, go for it. But that's not most of us. Okay, so the iPad Pro, I think, is off the table for most people. The iPad Air is the sweet spot, man. It's an incredible device for the price. That's gonna be like the everyday person's iPad. If you are gonna go with the iPad A16, This is for somebody who's getting into iPad OS and you kind of want to just see what the experience is like. I mean, for 350 bucks, man, this is just absolutely phenomenal. If you're getting a gift for somebody, this is going to be such a great device for them. And for the person like me who's a huge reader, I mean, I read for probably 2 to 3 hours a day, the iPad mini is an incredible value. If you already have a great MacBook and you don't really want to have a massive iPad while you're kind of traveling around, the iPad mini is where it is at. It is my absolute favorite iPad. I can't recommend it enough, but I like understand for most people they want a little bit bigger screen than the 8.3. So let me know in the comments below, which iPad are you going to get, or do you already have? How is your experience? And just a heads up, I typically respond to every single comment, so if you have a question, go ahead and leave it in the comments below. Like this video if you found it helpful, sub to the channel because we are on our way to 20,000. I appreciate you guys. I'll see you all in the next one.